Hello, Internet. My name is Chamomile.
Cam, forget about the podcast and help me!
I mean, you seem like you're having a perfectly good time to me. You're
I mean,
dancing with the skeleton?
they're skeletons! How are they moving? They don't have any tendons!
I... It's a dance, man. They're not, like, attacking you.
You know how I feel about doing the foxtrot in public! Cam, forget the podcast and help me!
Alright,
They're
1 second,
perfectly good-
viewers. Hey, Shoo! Shoo, come on, you had your fun. Go on. Get. Yes, Shoo,
Oh.
Shoo.
Oh, thank God. The dance macabre, combining my two worst fears. Skeletons and dancing. We just barely made it out of there alive.
If you
I
say
don't know if
so,
we can
man.
do the podcast.
You're gonna be fine.
What if they want to waltz? What if they come back and they try to waltz?
Then I guess I'll have to talk at them with my stern voice again. Like, they seem at worst a little pushy.
You know the only dance I do in public is the Macarena.
And because we're friends, I have never asked you about that.
Like, it's skeletons. They're perfectly good fantasy monsters, but they don't work in a horror setting, and that terrifies me.
I guess it's a good thing that that's a really weird phobia to have.
It's fine. It's fine. They're fantasy creatures. It's not like they exist in the real world.
It was just here.
Yeah, but we're clearly trapped in some sort of fantasy realm. Skeletons are real.
Do you mean animate skeletons or in general?
In general. Why would you even ask that question?
No reason. We will deal with this when we are in a less stressful situation. It's fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah, let's just focus on the podcast, and I'll keep an eye out for any dancing skeletons.
Yes, podcast. We are tracking down. So yeah, we're tracking down a plague right now. We're looking for a missing ghoul, who I believe has a skyline apartment. He may actually be in the Empire Arms Hotel.
Koshula can jump pretty high.
Yeah, apparently that's a built-in vampire superpower, because we sure don't have celerity or clout, I think it's called, or anything like that. It's either clout or potence. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead and go through every single apartment in this building, steal all of it.
Has our apartment been upgraded yet? Like, are we still that crappy one?
We're still in the crappy one because we're not a Ventru, which means LaCroix doesn't like us very much. You can get LaCroix to give you a nice apartment in this building, but you have to do everything just right, and we kind of fucked that one up, like, instantly, so...
Oh. Don't we get, like, a Tremere house at some point?
Yes, in Hollywood we're going to get a Tremere. So here we have found the apartment where the host of What the Ghost lives.
Oh, good.
Speaking of which...
And the hospital. But in my crew, are they... Really? A joke? A joke, right? Oh, real funny. Oh, you got me good. I'm going to hurt some people very badly.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, nah, Pisha seemed very nice. I mean, we didn't have the conversation on camera because someone left me alone with a hag who wanted more than just the dance, by the way. But,
You're fine. We patched your arm up. And we got so much gingerbread out of it. What you were saying.
Isn't even that good. But, yeah, if you talk to her, you can be a total asshole to her. About how, like, I only drink blood, I don't eat people, what you're doing is messed up, which is not an option I ever take because of how blatantly hypocritical it is. But,
Mr. Milton, you know who this is, and I totally realize there's still a lot of time.
but even if you take that option, she's basically just, calmly and reasonably points out that it's really not that different. You're still eating people.
Job that I am proposing.
Granted, she does seem like she has to kill more often than we do, so there is that.
Yeah.
But you aren't able to bring that up. Like, the kill count, the body count is not something you can bring up. You can say, but I'm not a cannibal. Like, seems like a pretty minor distinction there, that you are strictly speaking not eating the flesh of people. You are only drinking their blood. Like,
if you're gonna have vampires be the only supernatural creature in your game, period, I guess you can have flesh-eating vampire, but I think if you're doing a more monstrous thing, there are other monsters that are gonna want to be the flesh eaters, like ghouls and wendigos.
right. And it is Old World Darkness did box themselves into this theme very early on of being hyper vampire focused. And even then, they didn't stick to it because they did end up having werewolves in it. Just
Which again, I feel like a vampire is strong, but I think eventually you're gonna inevitably want non-vampire stuff in your world.
yeah, like you lead with the vampire, but you're gonna eventually need something else.
Your vampire's like your lead guitarist, but you can't have a band of just lead guitarists. I guess you could, but doesn't seem like the best idea.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some weird bands in the past, so I guess that could be a thing, but and I was being completely literal when I said rob this place. It is like, it made sense to me in Santa Monica that we're a brand new vampire, and so we kind of scrounge around for wealth. But at this point, when we're in downtown and we're really getting involved in like the conflict between the Anarchs and the Camarilla and the Sabbat, even.
Hi, Paul.
It feels very strange to me that we still care about scrounging around for cash. Like, it seems like we should be enough of a vampire at this point that we can afford to do things like restock ammo whenever we want. It's like, this ain't like buying up businesses or anything like that where you need absolute stacks of cash. So, the guy we're looking for has inconveniently died.
That's just too bad, isn't it?
But he had a girlfriend upstairs.
I'm sure she's fine.
Her vents are locked. Apparently she is the only one who knows to lock her vents.
I didn't know that was a thing that you needed to do.
So, alright, fine. Go back to this floor. And I will take the elevator and break in through her front door.
Now, theoretically, if you were to make a vampire knockoff game, what type of monsters other than like vampires and werewolves would hypothetically?
Well, the three headliners for Old World of Darkness were always vampire, werewolf, and mage. And I do think having some kind of occultist, sorcerer, witch splat is necessary. You want to be able to play as Willow or as
Harry Dresden.
Dresden. Yes, that's the one. I was trying to think of that one, but is the quest log keeping track of the password for this? Because I forgot it. It is okay. 1203. But yeah, so you definitely want to do the wizard next. The wizard is a hard one to do because, well, the vampire and the werewolf can go ahead and have powers that are fairly constrained by what type of creature they are. You definitely want the wizard to be much more open. And when I say type, I mean like subtype, even. Um, you don't want to constrain things too much. I think vampire was too overzealous in this regard, of each clan having only 3 disciplines and the disciplines being fairly narrow. But the wizard does need to be very open in that, even if you can't learn a whole lot of magic as a wizard, you can't just be the Omni Wizard from D&D who learns literally everything. You do want your wizard to be able to mix and match power sets a lot, right? Like maybe you can, maybe there's, let's say, 13 magic disciplines in the game, and a wizard can only learn 3 of them, but he should be able to learn. I say he. They should be able to learn any 3 of them, though. So that's the wizard, and that's the problem with the wizard, that the needle you gotta thread.
Who are you? What are you doing in here?
She's probably fine.
He did? That's so sweet.
So after those headline 3, those are the 3 that like you sort of absolutely need. But then after that, there's plenty of room for more, right? Like we've already got, let's say, just hypothetically, 9 different types of vampire. We've got a werewolf, and then maybe a werecat, wererat, or werebear. Those other lycanthropes aren't really necessary, but we definitely need the werewolf. And then we've got a wizard who is a wide open, no specific types. It's just here is the list of, schools of magic or disciplines of magic or whatever we're calling them. Here's a list of supernatural power. You get X amount of picks off of them. Do whatever. And now that I'm thinking about it, you could do something with like maybe the way that you become a wizard might constrain your choices a bit, or might have a prerequisite that you have a specific type of magic. But it's something that you would build very differently to a vampire or a werewolf.
Yeah.
What day is it? I can't remember.
Then after that, you get into other thing. Like at the point where you've got those 3 already, and you probably do want those 3, unless you're squeezed for space for some reason.
I saw her.
If you have to cut it down to just vampires and werewolves, that would actually, you could get away with that, but it's not something you would want to do unless it was like, we can't afford to illustrate the book properly unless we cut things down a lot, kind of a thing.
She was just a woman who called. She found my ad in the newspaper.
So
Usually only
after that, you get into
she was offered a lot of money.
like Frankenstein, or I guess we're just gonna call them Frankenstein's monsters. Except we're not gonna do that because that's dumb. So we're gonna call them Frankensteins.
Her name was Jezebel.
Knowledge is knowing that Frankenstein isn't the name of the monster. Wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the name of the monster.
Right. So yeah, you have Frankensteins. That's a fairly compelling concept. You have the concept of like slayers, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where she has some kind of occult power used to fight monsters. You get into concepts like changelings, people who were stolen from their cribs and switched out at birth, and so they are a fantasy creature, and they've always been a fantasy creature. And I say stolen from their cribs, it's actually more compelling if they're like 12 years old when it happens. But having grown up in the mortal world for a while, they may have now developed more of an attachment to their mortal family than to the supernatural world they came from, or maybe not. And you have,
Yeah, I mean,
or the other way around.
truth, I don't really remember a whole lot about that night. Everything's a little.
Point
blurry,
is, you have a
know?
huge
I mean,
grab bag of possibilities
You know,
that you have to sort of narrow and codify down, because otherwise you will be here forever.
Attracted to her.
Yeah.
I thought she was the most
Is that, yeah,
beautiful
you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer had, in any given
thing
season,
that's clicked
like,
is when I
at least a half dozen different monsters that could each be their own splat, and you can't do that. It's too many.
tell you the truth.
Yeah, you probably got to differentiate between like a playable SWAT
And
and
never
like
have to be so
monster of
bad
the
either,
week.
you know?
Yeah.
So like you do want some monsters of the week so you can have stuff for your players to interact with to just fight,
We're at
but
the Empire Hotel. I can't remember the number. I think
and that can be
Sheriff
potentially some of the
Foster.
weirder
He's
stuff
not 60.
like vampire pumpkins, but
Good.
Yeah.
He's the next guy.
Uh,
Oh, because
so if you want to talk about playable splats, then
I hope so.
you have, I'm trying to, I know there's 3 main ones besides the big 3. Well, 4, but the 7th one is a little bit special. I'm trying to think. There's animates, transhumans, and some of the third thing.
Leviathan.
That's right. Which, in Leviathan, is very much like, you know, sort of a grab bag of different concepts that have been nailed to each other, mainly to make them easier to chunk up. Because Leviathan includes the Mi-Go, who is the bag of bugs. You know, just a bunch of, you know, a hive of bugs just inhabiting a human body. That's a cool concept. There's no reason that can't be a playable concept. Calvin was one of those, and he was one of the best characters in that Mummy campaign.
Yeah. Mummies and bags of bugs go together so well.
But yeah, so, and then another one with that is there you have the deep ones, the, you know, who is the creature from the Black Lagoon, the, I forget the name of the more recent movie where the creature from the Black Lagoon was the good guy, and
He was
also,
sexy.
yeah, he's this. I mean, he wasn't though. He was still just a fish man.
The
But
shape of the
nevertheless,
water.
shape of water, yeah. I mean, you know, apparently that, you know, it wasn't even a furry movie per se, in that it was actually scaly, which is like an even more obscure sub fetish of furrydom, and yet that got like a mainstream movie made where he was just like a straight out fish man. You know, he wasn't like a totally human safe sexy guy whose skin happened to have a scale texture on it kind of a thing. No, fish man, creature from the Black Lagoon. Apparently that's sexy now. I'm not judging, but I am
Sapien.
shocked.
Ape Sapien.
Yeah.
I think
So
you could see people being into Ape Sapien. Like he's kind of hot in a nerdy way.
I mean, I'm barely familiar with the character. I can't, like, I know he's a Hellboy guy, but I can't even picture him in my head. I've read a couple of Hellboy stories, but only a few.
I've not read the comics. The movies are eh.
Yeah, I heard the movies were so I never saw them.
But I can see somebody finding Ape Sapien sexy. You've got so much experience.
Right, that's sort of what I've been thinking about. Is like, you know what? I need to start spending some of this. So,
Third dot thaumaturgy, maybe?
it would be pretty expensive, and the blood shield isn't even that great. At some point,
too
I do
bad.
want to get blood theft, though. So, and I have enough intimidate, persuasion, and seduction to get by right now. Not to mention lockpicking and hacking. I got so many skills I'm trying to spec here. But so I'm basically asking myself: is do I want to buff my persuasion? I am actually gonna start increasing my persuasion in anticipation of the next place, because I like being able to persuade my way through things. Not only is it a very vampiric thing to do, because of course when a vampire asks you to do something, you have to say yes. It's basically impossible to turn them down. This is a supernatural power that all vampires. This is a supernatural power that all vampires have over all other creatures, without exception. And so yeah, I want to play to that.
Hey there, need a date?
You've seen me tell Fang Requiem no.
Lies. Fake news. Uh,
But Migo, deep
yeah.
ones, ghouls, like troglodytes, essentially, like the mole people or the hills have eyes.
Right. Yeah,
Your
basically what they have in
transhumans,
common is that they are some kind of animal person. Um,
which there are potentially other animal people to add. I don't know whether you want to or not, whether you would want to or not.
I think that is the biggest skirt physics fail so far.
Buy a watch.
We're finally out of a skirt, which is like the female Tremere looks really good, like perfectly like a modern witch apprentice when standing still. But those skirt physics, they are a little bit erratic. But yeah, you have I don't have the complete list of potential sort of animal themed people memorized, and of course, a lot of animal themed people are folded into lycanthropes because, in particular, there's no point doing anyone wolf themed
Yeah,
because you've already split that out into lycanthropes. Because werewolves have, werewolves are your bass guitar. They have a lot of recognizable cachet on their own, and so you don't need to fold them into this uh, category of leviathans, which is again really just created in order to group together a bunch of barely related concepts because you don't want to just dump all of your other concepts into a giant unordered list.
Yes? May I help you? Yes. Miss Locke is one of our more
now what if I theoretically
popular
wanted to
guests.
play
Why do you
an
ask?
undead but didn't want to be
I
a
can't do
vampire?
that. It's against hotel policy.
Then you could have a revenant of some
And
sort.
what would that be? Like, explain that concept. I've never heard of this.
I mean, you say that, and now I'm worried that I'm going to remember some of the details wrong from the write up that you gave me.
Theoretically, this theoretical write-up
In that
Right.
for this thing that we've
perhaps
never
I make
worked
an
on.
exception. Here
But the
goes.
Revenant, fundamentally, the idea behind the Revenant, the concept of the Revenant, is an undead creature who comes back because they have some unfinished business, stereotypically revenge, that they cannot rest until they have accomplished. It is someone who is too determined to die, which I find very compelling.
And that could be somebody like someone who drowned and is sort of like, there's all sorts of various spirits associated with drowning, like uh, God, Rusalkas and Naiads and uh, a certain sorceress that we may know. But you could also have somebody who dies of hunger becoming coming back as a Wendigo.
Although, the idea for the Leviathans, the unifying theme that, we sort of slapped on them, hypothetically,
Yeah, who do we have
is that
here?
they
Have you ever
reproduce by
visited a
eating the flesh
morsel?
of dead
Have you come to the kind of
other
enlightenment
creatures, right? Like, so you
Jessica
get more
can
fish
give?
people by eating a fish people. And so one thing I did like was the idea is that the
Yes,
Wendigo
I am
comes
Jessica,
about when you eat
and I
humans.
have such things
Is that
to
it's a
I could
monster
see
type.
little morsel.
I could see that being either.
Such beautiful,
Uh,
dirty little
I could see that
things.
going either way,
Won't
definitely.
you come into
Yeah.
my parlor?
I really like the idea of the Wendigo as the type of Leviathan that you get when you eat, when you cannibalize humans.
Yeah. Uh, you'd potentially
Oh,
want somebody
you
who
can
froze to death, so
me,
that could get
little morsel.
Yuki Onna and your Jack
One
Frost.
way or another, you
Right.
and I will
Uh,
intertwine our beings on the way into
Somebody whose
the
body
night
was like
circle.
really physically
And
damaged in their
I
death,
will
like
send
the
you
bent neck
forth,
lady in
full of the
The Haunting of
sweetest
Hill House
desire.
or the Crooked String series. Uh,
Yes,
I also think you'd want to do somebody who's essentially a psychopomp, somebody Eric Draven and the Crow, maybe somebody who doesn't know how they died, who has some mystery around their death, and you give them a bird motif, because I think the bird psychopomp is a pretty common theme. You get not just Eric Draven, but like the Morrigan or Valkyries.
I cannot control my hunger any longer. Come, the truth will be shown to you as I drink the blood from your twice lifeless body. Oh, it will be ecstasy.
This conversation we're having is fine, right?
Ecstasy, little morsel. Sweet ecstasy.
I mean, I've threatened to kill her like 3 times, and she's just not getting it.
Did we run into a Jezebel lock at some point? Or did she just get mentioned?
You mean in the game? She has been mentioned before.
Because that name sounds super familiar.
Yeah, in the conversation with the plague victim, that's how we got the hint to come here.
Okay.
And yeah, she does mention that Jezebel Locke was the name. She's like, man, talk about an obvious alias. You know, that one is slightly more convincing than Jane Doe.
Speaking of Jane Doe, my friend Stu talked to you. Pseudonym? You remember Stu, right?
I'm not sure that I do.
Yeah, Susan Danielle Nim, pseudonym. We've had her on the podcast before, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I guess from a certain point of view, we've had her on several times. More than once in a single show, even.
That seems unlikely.
I should probably put this shotgun away before I step back into the hotel lobby.
It's not that kind of hotel.
Although, I mean, I say that, but this game doesn't actually have any... The NPCs do not actually react. You just walk around with not only a gun, but a long arm, even.
Warning, officer.
Just, apparently, this game takes place in the Texas part of LA. But yeah, so you have the Leviathans and the Revenants. With transhumans is again sort of an umbrella term used to encompass like both Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and also Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and a couple other concepts. Technically, Sailor Moon. Like, that's not really a goal of any hypothetical Old World of Darkness knockoff game to support Sailor Moon, but
you could totally do it.
Yeah, like, it's doable. But yeah, that is, as the name implies, and it could probably use a better name, but I can't think of one. The theme there, though, is that it is a human who has enhanced themselves in some way. It's like, you know, Dr. Jekyll has drank the potion and he can now transform into Mr. Hyde, or maybe compelled to uncontrollably, depending on how you want to play it. You know, a new Slayer is activated and they gain these magical powers. But, whatever it is, they have a sort of an upgrade to their normal selves, but there is no, they're not undead the way a vampire or a revenant is. They have not... I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to put my finger on what I'm trying to get at here. There's no bloodline kind of a thing.
Yeah.
This is an upgrade that they have done to themselves. Is like the key distinction here.
Like,
Which, well, not even necessarily they have done to themselves, but that has been like applied to them. And transhumans do not.
yeah. And I think like that's potentially where you get like monster hunters who are kind of able to actually go toe to toe with monsters.
It's like that's the main thing that it's trying to support there, is the hunter character who is personally capable of fist fighting a werewolf. You know, the way that you would expect Buffy to be able to melee a werewolf to a standstill. Not that that show ever had the budget to do werewolves any kind of justice, but they did try, bless their hearts.
I think they're doing a reboot.
I've heard that. I've been hearing that for years, so I think it might be stuck in development hell, but
I'm always of the opinion that I prefer new IP to reboots.
yeah. It's all, if you're going to do a reboot, I think it should be of something that failed horribly, but had a good idea in it.
Yeah, like it could have been done much better. Like, I wasn't totally opposed to the Suspiria remake, but the Suspiria remake also ended up being eh.
Right.
Like, there was potential in Suspiria, and then they did the Suspiria remake, and it was like, this doesn't really work.
It's also, this one has been around so long that it doesn't even, like, that we don't even call them reboots anymore. They're just adaptations now. But John Carter, I love the concept behind John Carter. I'm waiting for someone to make a good piece of media out of it.
See, I feel like Star Wars has taken the air out of John Carter. Like, it stole so much from John Carter that now if you did a John Carter movie, people are going to think you're ripping off Star Wars.
I think what John Carter brings to the table is that the protagonist is from our Earth, which is why if you were to do an adaptation of John Carter that was any good at all, you would have it be a modern person. You know, you would have it be someone from 2020.
Yeah, don't make him a Confederate soldier.
Yeah. Like, even ignoring all the baggage of the Confederacy, like, if you switched him to a Union soldier, it would not fix all the problems. Because, yeah, you know, if you switched him to a World War II soldier in, like, living in the 60s or something, it still wouldn't fix all the problems. Because the problem is still that the major draw of John Carter is that he is a regular human who is transported into a space opera. And for the modern reinterpretation, you might not even want to set it on Mars, even though it is called John Carter of Mars. You could go with an underground Martian civilization angle, but yeah, because you do need the protagonist to be from modern Earth, because otherwise why are you even doing John Carter? It does have to be modern Earth for whatever era you're making it in, and they have to be teleported into a space opera, space fantasy setting. Which means you gotta either figure out some reason why Curiosity and Opportunity never found all the Martians, or else you have to set it on Alpha Centauri or something. But yeah,
or you do something like a...
I'm there for a John Carter reboot that's actually good. And, you know, besides updating John Carter himself to the modern world, you don't have to change that much about what Mars is like.
Yeah.
You know, the basic concept of the four-armed Martian super soldiers and the Martian princess in peril and stuff, like, I'm there for all of that, provided that you can write and or, you know, cinematographize for shit, which neither the book nor the movie, so far as I've heard from the movie, I never even watched it, but I heard it was really meh. The writing of the book was definitely extremely meh. Just not well written.
We told him to burn the blood and go to the hospital. Said he thought he'd get over it. Men are stubborn that way. This proves the plague bearer's gotta be found.
Good news on that front.
Except we just did a second one over near the convention center. They're part of
So I
some
guess
doomsday
since we're
cult.
doing the Plague Bearer
We
cult, we can
told
talk
him
about
there are
vampires as a
open
disease
season on
metaphor.
all these 600
Yes,
cases.
and the very first thing and last thing we want to say about that is to stop doing them.
Like, it's had its time, and it can be interesting, but it's been done, and it's not actually the end-all be-all of vampires.
So, yeah,
And, like, zombies have kind of superseded it.
right. And that the modern conception of the zombies is like half a century old. So it is very recently that the zombie as disease metaphor has really been perfected. But it has been. It has eclipsed the vampire as the disease metaphor so thoroughly that there's very little reason to use a vampire as disease metaphor. Like, I'm sure you could find some weird edge case where using vampires for your disease metaphor is a good idea. It's, the world is a vast and complex place. There's always weird edge cases like that. But broadly speaking, zombies are much better at this, and you should use them. Which, I realize that we're just a couple of years out from the big zombie craze, and they're still kind of played out. But the fact is, they work as a disease metaphor much better than vampires do, because their transmission vector is a lot less intentional, and there's no glamour to them. Which, a disease is not glamorous.
Like, you do get the occasional romanticization of diseases, like consumption got romanticized, but we're kind of past that in the culture.
Like, if there were a disease being romanticized right now, then I could see vampire as disease metaphor having their moment again. But yeah, diseases provoke nothing but disgust right now, which, seems like a pretty healthy thing, since that's kind of what the disgust reaction is for. Hang on. The peasant I'm looking for is this guy, I think. Nope,
Cram at the crab nipple men. I'm sure that's fine.
Yeah, no, he's just a homeless guy muttering inanities to himself. So, the city's mental health system appears to be in working order.
The strain tried to do, to go back to the vampire's disease metaphor, which I did not really like the strain. They couldn't decide whether it was trying to be horrific or campy, and I don't know, I just didn't find it that interesting. And also, there was a really stupid twist in the third book. I don't know if they did it in the TV series or not.
All I know is old Tin Can Bill. He's been jabbering
I guess
about
spoilers
some
for the
kind of
strain.
monster that took him somewhere and
Yeah,
got him
spoilers from a movie from how long ago that wasn't even that good?
That's all I'm saying.
It's like 10
Not
years
that
ago now,
long.
isn't it?
Find him down in his
I don't think so.
Just across from that bar over there.
I mean, it's long enough ago that we can't remember what year it came out, which means it's got to be like, at the absolute latest, it's got to be like 2018, right? Although I guess, 2020 has lasted for 5 years, so.
14 to 17. But, I cannot remember what I was about to say about the strain. Oh, spoilers about the strain. So in the book, I don't know if the TV show kept this. So they do a lot of work about doing like a scientific, quote unquote, form of the vampire and giving like a scientific explanation for all the vampire's weaknesses and traits. And guess what the origin of vampires?
Fucking magic? Magnets.
I mean, how do they work? But it's pieces of a fallen angel.
So basically just fucking magic then.
Yeah, fucking magic. After they spent so much time, I don't really like scientific explanations for vampires. I think it's overdone and stupid. But if you're going to do that, you need to do that. So they spend so much time establishing scientific explaining the creature, and it's like, the original vampires were pieces of a fallen angel.
The only place where I am okay with scientific explanations for vampires is if you have a...
That's probably fine.
If you have a sci-fi space opera kind of setting, or even space operas, actually, you may as well just go magic with that one. But if you have a sci-fi sort of setting, and you want vampires in it, then you might need some kind of scientific vampire who is like some sort of lab creation, or a mutant, or an alien, or something like that. And, like, I think that's okay. But if you're just doing a regular vampire movie, then just let the vampires be fucking magic. Since apparently after 3 seasons, that's the conclusion you're going to come to anyway.
He done tore him up, right in two.
Like,
Ripped him apart like a rag doll.
kind of see this like in folklore studies when people whose backgrounds are like in the hard science folklore studies come in and try to explain the origins of folkloric stuff. They try to use end up giving bad explanations because they look at the modern pop culture version of a thing and not the how it was actually seen, which is where you get stuff like, oh, lycanthropy was just an explanation for rabies, or vampirism was inspired by porphyria, or ergot poisoning is what caused the witch trials. It's sort of this contextless scientific explanation that doesn't actually match how these things were described at the time. The symptoms of ergot poisoning do not match what was described as the Salem witch trials. Lycanthropy was not spread by a bite, so it couldn't have been. It's not rabies that is inspiring it. Most vampire cases, like I did mention a couple episodes ago, the living vampires, but when you have somebody actually going out and digging up a vampire, it's usually a dead body already, so it's not porphyria, which is a syndrome that living people have.
Never think about that again.
Kind of a thing that happens. Like, the thing about folklore, it's complex. It's doesn't necessarily have easy explanations or single explanations.
Right.
Like, I've seen people try to explain, well, why do vampires... And I occasionally see people go, well, it's because mirrors used by silver. And there's a couple problems with that. Like, first of all, I don't know what I have not been able to pin down when the first case of somebody saying vampires don't have reflections is. Apparently, one of the earliest literary cases is an Alexandre Dumas novel. But whether this was ever actually a thing in folklore isn't really clear. Whenever I've read about living vampires, which is the only point where having a test would make sense like that, I never see any. The way you identify a living vampire is they have hooves, and it's.
Who's there, huh?
I've never seen any mention of mirrors identifying a vampire. Obviously, if you're going up and digging up a corpse, you're not going to put a mirror in front of it to see if it's a vampire. But even if you have, like,
the mirror test will always fail, which, these folklore things, they have to be able to succeed some of the time. Otherwise, it's like, oh hey, we never seem to catch any vampires. At which point,
it's like, yeah,
it's that. At which point, that folktale is not doing its job anymore. It is failing to explain the world, because no matter how many people you check for vampirism, you never find the vampire who's cursed your town.
Like, it expects a level of logic and reason to folklore that it doesn't have. Like, vampires don't have reflections because vampires don't have reflections. There isn't necessarily a deep meaning behind it.
Like, someone thought that story. It's kind of like asking, why can Sith shoot lightning from their fingertips? Like, there's not a, there's not a folkloric explanation to that. There's not a cause based on the anxieties of 1980s America or whatever. It was cool, so people kept doing it. It got kind of driven into the ground, even.
Like, there are ex post facto explanations for why vampires don't have reflections, and, like, if you want your explanation to be it's backed by silver, sure, but it could also just be well, vampires don't have souls, the reflection is your soul, or it could just not be explained because it's just a trope in folklore or literature. Like, vampires aren't real, so they can have whatever attributes you want.
Right.
The dark place. Oh God, the smell, worse than anything. And then he bit me.
You're probably fine.
Oh God, it was horrible. Don't remember.
He's the very picture of health.
Blacked out and woke up here.
So this is the corruption cult.
Yeah.
Haven't been feeling too well since then.
So where on my map of downtown LA is the bad place?
Just around the corner there. Don't want to go back to the bad place, friend. Don't let the monster come back and take me there.
I mean, by the sound of things, it sounds like he's got about 5 minutes, so... Something they clearly wanted, you know, this to be a homeless man who's lying on the ground, expiring. But apparently they couldn't get the model to do that because they just had him stand in the middle of the alley until he dies. Like, he doesn't feel the need to sit down or lie down near the end. Nah, he is standing up until his knees give out, and that is the moment he dies. Yep, here we are.
Oh. Never mind then. Yeah, this is probably related.
On your way down here, did you? Following the smell of entrails and rotting flesh. Looking for a free meal, little bloodsucker. There's meat galore in my kingdom. Brother Canker, they call me. High Lord in the diseased halls of the dead. Look around you. The blood.
Alright, so we're gonna join the cult, right?
The maggot-ripped mortal shells.
If your humanity is low enough, you can try, but they won't have you.
The coming of a
Well, why
new
not?
age.
They don't really say. They basically just say, yeah, we're going to kill you now.
The Brotherhood of the Ninth Circle. The darkest dawn.
That said, I'm not sure I want to join this cult. It's a disease cult,
Join us in
Yeah.
the last nights,
and that's not my kind of cult.
our disease
Aw.
on the earth,
What kind of
sharing
cult would
this
you join?
unholy communion with our human herd.
I prefer the kind of Illuminati sort of cult, where, like, you know, they're the secret masters of the entire world, of all governments.
They are the weak, sick, hopeless. I bring them a new
Or at the very least, you know, they've got to have some kind of
vessels of
uh,
darkness, carrying
secret
disease
occult power that they're
through
covering
their
up.
veins.
It seems like these guys have secret disease powers.
Doors have been opened.
Yeah, but, like,
The seal's broken.
then I have a
Final
disease.
steps into the abyss. Mysteries of the Ninth Circle.
There are things I'm not willing to give up for occult power.
Come, join the disciples who have gathered here, floating in their own putrescence. I will show you the mysteries of our brotherhood as I feed on your flesh.
Yeah, I guess that's I'll point out that Nosferatu works very well as a...
Actually, they got a whole bunch of different angles on disease in this little story. Also, this guy's dealing aggravated damage, and that's going to be a problem. Because
Yep.
you need a lot of blood to heal that. It's funny, in the blood heal was re-added by the patch. It's cut content.
What?
Yes. The only generic vampire power in the released game was the blood buff.
Wow.
So, in the original game, if you wanted to, You okay, buddy? Yeah, in the
I'll
release
be
game,
fine.
if you wanted to heal, you had to do it all through blood packs. So you would just
Wow.
keep a giant stock of those on hand like they were health potions. Yeah, so they have a fairly wide variety of different disease vectors. you know, they have a reference to sexually transmitted disease. Earlier with Jezebel Locke. Are you gonna get me to throw up? You are not. Okay. There is disease spreading amongst the homeless here with Brother Canker, and now we are about to go through the disease warren of a crack house. So, you know.
Oh boy.
You get all kinds of different disease. I mean, not
I'm
all
sure
kinds, but...
People standing around in hazmat suits, everything's fine with that, right?
Yeah, that's actually why you get assigned this mission, is that it's like, yeah, we got vampires spreading a plague, and the CDC is in here trying to figure out what's up with it. And it's like, if they look close enough, they're going to find vampires.
The CDC is always like so close to finding vampires, but they never actually ever figure it out.
Brotherhood. The bishop will see you upstairs.
I don't think I can afford anything I want with 5 XP right now. I'm pretty sure it's all 6+. Yeah.
Hey, did you get summoned? You're going upstairs to see the bishop.
So the voice acting on this is really great, but like her shocked, not even shocked, but like, you know, her wary animation
You're
is
new to the brotherhood.
really like, you know, she's kind of like leaning away from you and just kind of like fidgeting back and forth.
I've been here a few days. When the bishop wants to see you, you'll be summoned, and then you go up these stairs up to the temple. I don't know. I mean, I hear things, but I haven't been summoned. I had a friend snuck up there a few days ago. Said she saw things, bad things. Yeah. Blood. She said, blood everywhere. She saw a few of the summoned to try to talk to them, but they just stared at her with these blank looks, you know. One of them started reaching for her, and she ran away.
Kim, do you see that over there?
The bishop said we
I
shed our
I think it's a skeleton. Get down, get down.
Fears journey to the.
It's doing the
to
Charleston.
Circle.
We're recording, man. We gotta stay close to the microphone.
Upstairs,
It's doing the Charleston.
No, I want to go.
You know
home.
what? I've been thinking about it, Cam, and I think you're right. We've got to get Fang Requiem. Like, I can't.
I was
deal
about
with
to
this anymore.
ask because, like, I mean, I'd almost be embarrassed to tell him what finally drove you to get in touch with him, but like, you know, there are like flesh-eating hags and spiders and shit in here, and you know, I think that, like, you know, there's definitely some things to be concerned about in whatever weird part of Texas we've gotten into. What's the haunted region of Texas called?
Oh, Houston.
That checks out. I didn't realize Houston was this big. Like, I realized
Yeah.
Texas is kind of spread out, but man. I did not get the axe, did I?
Fine, you have a sword.
Yeah, luckily that Kuei Jin had a ninja sword, because of course he did.
I think Copula just has a bunch of swords lying around the apartment for Ren fairs and such. You know she does.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
She's definitely big into cosplay. Like, see how well she's doing?
Right? Like,
Like, I'm actually, like, impressed. I remember this level being kind of hard.
it definitely taxes your ammo if you try to go through it with guns. It's also that Kuei Jin that you can fight in Santa Monica. In the unpatched version, he does not drop any weapons. So, you know, this is kind of a Hollywood, even Chinatown tier sword that we've got here. There is, in Chinatown, you can get an even better one. They have proper katanas, whereas there's a slightly shorter Shinto, I think it's called. Something like that. Which I realize that Shinto is the name of a Japanese religion, but I think there's a dash in this one, which affects the pronunciation in some way that I don't know, but it is a different word. But yeah. Shingunto. That's what it is.
Okay. I mean, you're doing super well so far.
But yeah. This level is real annoying with the fire axe, and even more annoying to try and do purely with shotguns, because you will run out of bullets. Like, there's just, you cannot carry enough shotgun slugs, or I guess it's like buckshot that they have in there, but yeah, you cannot carry enough to actually get through all this. Luckily, if you're in the patch version, if you kill the Kuei Jin and you're lucky enough that he drops his sword instead of his crossbow, then you can just use that and you're fine. Is there anything down that hallway? Because usually, in most games, in sensibly designed video games, a pitch black hallway indicates an invisible wall that they're concealing. Which, okay, that is just the end of a corridor. Ah, here we are. What the hell?
There's a rat.
Oh, it's an aura. Okay. I was like, why is that rat glowing? And yeah, it's
It's
magic.
magic. It's a quest giver. Ask it what it needs help with. See if
Mr.
it's
Rat,
romanceable.
what do you need? My sweet whispers into his ear went another way.
No.
I gave him a kiss to see if he would turn into a prince. He did not. There. It's a surprisingly difficult barrier to get over, that low wall. Ah, more zombies. We must be going in the right direction.
Are these zombified humans, or are they some sort of vampire, or what?
They're zombified humans. So,
Okay.
ultimately, this game used zombies as the disease metaphor. Like, vampires had to be causing it, because vampires are responsible for everything in Vampire the Masquerade, That's why they have shitty vampire werewolves and shitty vampire wizards and so forth.
Shitty vampires. Oh wait, that's probably okay, actually.
Yeah, no, the Ventrue are fine. But yeah, so vampires had to be responsible, but ultimately the zombies are just zombies, because zombies are the superior disease metaphor.
Are you searching for something? Do you seek the truth? Well, you have come to the
And then,
right
funnily
place,
enough, one of the
sister.
first
We've got
like
more truth here
zombie
than we can
apocalypse
handle.
pieces of literature is a vampire novel.
Really?
I Am Legend.
Oh yeah.
Which is essentially a zombie apocalypse, but vampires, and also it's like it's immediately deconstructing the whole zombies as completely abject other that you can kill with impunity because you can't actually.
When was that written?
Do you feel
I think the
sister?
50s.
The curtain being
'Cause,
drawn
yes,
back
that
was-
at last, drawn back by
Let me
my
hold on. Let me get the
by
crystal ball.
Brotherhood of the Ninth Circle.
I'm so glad that I took this from her.
Are you sure that's not why she was chasing us?
I mean, I think she did want to eat you.
I mean,
Sister,
that definitely,
you got to open your mind.
for sure, I got that
One
impression
man's
too.
disease is
but-
another man's saint.
I'm just kind of wondering if she would have bothered chasing me after I was out of the room.
Shed these earthly labels. Come,
Don't worry about it.
partake of our divine communion.
Don't ask questions. It's 1954 according to the crystal
Okay.
ball.
Judgment Day.
So yeah, that was before.
The apocalypse.
Okay, remember when they said that
Oh,
vampires
yeah,
can't get
sister.
disease? This
You
guy's
are
coughing.
to
He seems pretty
indoctrinate
diseased to me.
antiquated
Uh,
beliefs of this material world.
But
There is
the
no rhyme or reason.
the zombie had not really
Oh,
arrived in its
powerful
final form by
and terrible
1954.
gods who watch over their children.
You're still getting the voodoo
You talk
zombie,
of
like in White
disease.
Zombie,
What
Right.
about the disease that
which
So,
I
yeah,
want to
they
say
were
was the
not-
30s.
our flesh
Yeah,
really
they were
is
not,
nothing more than an abomination
a really good
feeding
disease
on
metaphor
our
at the time. They were all
brothers and
right,
sisters like
but vampires are
snakes.
still probably better.
What God
Well, ultimately, yeah,
wants
the
to
White
be
Zombie's 1932.
mature
Ultimately, like the folkloric zombie and sort of the early zombie movies are more about the
There
horrors
is
of
no
slavery and
God
forced
who will
labor.
tolerate such a thing.
Right.
And so I have
A zombie is a slave
and the
forever.
diseases I carry to the masses will bring about an end
It's,
to my own making. Until we have all
What's the John Romero one?
journeyed below into the ninth circle.
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, which I believe is 70s. And that's
Uh,
where you see the traits that make zombies such a good disease metaphor really come together. It's not an actual disease metaphor in that film, but the traits that that film's codified.
1968.
Okay, 1968, so nearly the 70s.
The time for words has come and gone, my sister.
Thank God.
You and I will take those last steps together and see what truth lies behind the curtain. Let the night fall forever on this cursed earth, and let the
His
fruits of
face
our
looks a
labor
lot
bring
better than his
long
hair.
and bloody
Like, not from a, like,
harvest.
appearance point, but, like, from, like, an actual... Not like he's attractive, but, like, it looks well done, whereas his hair is very polygony.
Yeah. Alright, let's clear your goons out first. And also get some blood out of you, just in case I need heals. But yeah, so it's from Night of the Living Dead on that you see zombies start to move fairly rapidly in the direction of a, being really good for a disease metaphor. And even then, even though all the pieces are in place, you don't see zombies as a disease metaphor come up very much until the relatively recent zombie craze.
Yeah.
So it started in like 2005-ish, 2005 to 2010 somewhere.
What was the first one? Is it the Dawn of the Dead remake?
I'm really not sure, like I'm not a huge zombie fan.
I really
No?
don't like zombies. Like, I just think they're overdone and they only tell one...
They're definitely overdone. I don't think they can carry a movie or franchise very well on their own. Despite, you know, a decade of fervent attempts. Like, I
how many
say,
seasons of Walking Dead have there been?
according to the ads on the Magnus Archives, 10.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they keep advertising for AMC Plus. It's funny too because Alex, the guy who plays Martin and is like the sound editor for Magnus Archives, one of the like 2 or 3 original guys working on it with Jonathan Sims. He does the ad. He reads the ads, and like he really puts the emphasis, which I imagine must have been a directive from AMC. He's like, "Oh, you can even find the latest on The Walking Dead," and it's like, dude, The Walking Dead is over. That's that cash cow is done. my magic powers nor my shotgun are doing as much damage as I'd like. I think this guy has fortitude.
Is the sword not a viable option?
Not for this guy. It goes through his minions really well, but that's because they have fairly low health and the sword has a high attack rate. So the sword is really good at getting them down before they can meaningfully damage me, because they're slow. This guy, though, I'd have to get in, I'd have to run into his shotgun spreads to attack him.
And I think he's clearly got celerity or something.
Yeah, he's got celerity. I think he's also got fortitude. This guy is...
Did he run out of ammo, or is that not a thing?
I don't think he can run out of ammo now.
That's always annoying.
I think I've seen enemies run out of ammo before, but... Hey there, buddy. I thought we were doing this at range.
That is not okay.
How much? I don't have any SMG ammo. So my thinking is that the individual bullets aren't doing much damage. Maybe I can spam him with them. Alright. I'm just doing this the long way then. I may not do a whole lot of individual damage with any of these attacks. But I can steal his health to turn into blood, which I can then turn into health. So ultimately, my health pool is as big as his is.
Yeah, this is a war of attrition, which is so interesting to watch.
Right?
That's the worst type of boss battle, where you just you're gonna win just by attrition, but it's extremely frustrating in the meantime.
I'm gonna run out of shotgun ammo, which means now I need to switch to the Glock.
Glock's his only weakness.
Glock is also ludicrously inaccurate in third-person mode, so... There.
Hooray!
And thus disease was solved forever, as a concept.